Good morning. So glad you're joining us for this presentation. We just have so much we want to share. It's not going to all fit in this short time we have together, but let's start with a word of prayer. The Lord be with you. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks for your Son, Jesus Christ, and the family that he has given to us in the people of Kirangari Lutheran Parish in Tanzania. We ask that you would stir up your spirit as we share stories of our visit, that you can prepare our hearts to receive their great love, to receive them in the flesh in June, and to send future travelers from Zion to Kirangari. For the sake of your love and the sake of your name, we pray. Amen. You've heard a lot of stories from me. I'm going to turn the mic over to our other travelers.
And we'll have a time after everybody talks to kind of do questions and stuff. So, if there's something really pressing, you can interrupt me. But I was just kind of going to go through the pictures I've got here and then tell some things. So this is, one of the things coming this time, we really got to know a lot more about people's day-to-day lives than we had in the past. Before it was like a big formal ceremony. Now we got to really time to visit one. This is my friend Simon. He is actually the assistant principal at their high school, and this is their school. So he took my son Connor and I to see his place where he worked. This is the landscaping. All the students there did this. These are plastic bottles that they use to make the formations here because they use what they have. And I just think it's beautiful. Filled up with this is Simon's office. This is what the assistant principal's office looks like in Tanzania. This is his file cabinet, basically. And you see the drum in the back, they made that for, and then at the time we were there, they weren't in school, but every single student there was in class, these are all their books, studying for their exams. Because they have to take exams to move to the next level there, and if they don't pass, they don't get to go to school anymore. So every one of these classrooms was filled with kids studying to make sure they pass their exams. So this is the Tanzanian flag in the middle there. This is what it looks like, the road getting to there from Simon's house, which is actually pretty good. It's not really that rocky, yeah. So I just think, I love all the purple flowers, and it's just everything's really beautiful. This is Pastor Fue, and this is Pastor Fue with his cowboy hat. So when we were there last year, we found out that he's a big country and western music fan, and I just thought he needed a cowboy hat. So when we got off the plane, Connor was wearing his cowboy hat, and Pastor Fue was like, "Oh, can I try it on?" And Connor's like, "Well, sure." And Connor's head is really small, so Pastor Fue was like, "Oh, it doesn't fit," and he was really sad. So the next day, I brought him another hat, and he goes, "Oh, is it bigger?" And I said, "Yes, it is," and it fit him, and he was so excited. These are just a bunch of little kids that were always there. This is down the steps from the milk store, and they were just there because they're just so fat. They just want to be with us. They just want to be around us all the time. This is actually in the milk store. This is Loveness. She's the one that runs it. And then they're all, they're kind of looking at the freezer and seeing what all kind of things we have here. This is Simon's family. This is his mom, who's had 9 kids, and his dad and his youngest sister, Rachel. So we went to visit them, and they gave me a bag like this of the coffee that they grow. Yeah, this is all the students at Simon's house, because they're on break. They came up to visit us. And I have a video, if you guys want to see it. It's the dance party at Simon's house with the students. It is amazing. This is what it looks like when I come out the door every morning. So I just am so inspired. I'll probably put it on my desk at work. So, and these are the mountains and the clouds you can see down below there. This is my driver, Samueli. Simon is very concerned that I be safe, and he will not let anyone but this man drive me because he knows that he will take care of me. So the whole time he would come and pick me up and take me everywhere. This is Maliki and Twazera. He's an evangelism student that's studying that will eventually come back to Kirangari. Twazera is on the companionship committee. He's their veterinarian. So, and the purple that he's wearing, that's what their choir wears. So he's part of the choir there. This is Pastor Fue and his family on the day we're leaving. We went to his house and had ginger tea with them, and before we left. So, and then this is Simon's new baby. So his wife had the baby the day we landed. And they asked me back in February to name him. So, and he did not get a name until I got there the following Monday. So for 5 days, they had to call him baby because they didn't know his name. But yeah, so he was 5 days old when we got to go and see him. This is my son holding Simon's son.
What's his name?
Caleb. Caleb is what. Caleb actually means faithful. So, and this, I had a story about why I named him that, about, someone who has a different spirit, who stays true to the Lord all of his life. So, and this is Simon with his daughter Joy that Pastor Clark named 2 years ago. And this is his wife Susan and their oldest daughter Leora. The woman had a baby 5 days before this picture was taken. And then she's got all these people in her house and a party for her. So, but she was absolutely adamant that we come and see her because it was worth everything to her. This is when we went to Arusha. This is the assistant bishop, right?
That's not quite right.
Okay, yeah. But anyways, the general secretary. I knew it was some name like that. But so we went to, and then this is the sports bar that Pastor Fue takes us to for lunch before we leave. So where we have Tanzanian altar wine, which is my favorite, and Pastor Fue's favorite. He made me drink a whole half a bottle of it while I was there. He kind of did. But, part of what was good this time was we actually got to fellowship. I mean, the travelers, we all got to know each other much better, and it really made us feel more connected here, even there. This is Sabave. This is a rock formation. Pastor Fue said when you see it, you know you're home in Kirangare. So I pictured it. And then this is just Simon and my son again. So do you guys want to see the dance party? I mean, it's a 4-minute video. I don't know how much time you got. So who wants to see it? You want to see it? Okay. Let's see if I can run this thing. No, how do I get back to, like that back? Okay, there we go. Okay. Now, this is at Simon's house. So Friday night, Simon had a bunch of his students. He didn't tell us about any of this. He had a bunch of his students come up with a sound system, and they had prepared this, like, choreographed party, like songs and dance. They had us join in. They did and it went on for quite a while before we had dinner. So I just kind of want to show you what they do for fun there, and what kind of stuff they invited us into. So. And it's, the lady taking it, you can see she kind of wasn't real good at this, so. Let's see if we can go forward a little bit. Okay. There we go. Like I said, I just really felt like this year we kind of received each other that way. So that was kind of the big thing. I asked my son Connor because he's a police officer in Des Moines and he didn't have any time off left. So I asked him to write a letter about what this meant to him. And I just want to read it for you. It says, I remember when my mother first told me about her first trip to Africa, and I saw some of the pictures, and it looked like she had a great time. She would consistently tell me how the experience really changed her life, and that it was something she thought everyone needed to experience. However, other than the occasional mentions, I didn't think much about it. I didn't think it was a place I had much interest in visiting. So my mom asked me around Christmas if I would come with her, and I said yes, because it sounded like a fun vacation, or at most kind of a service trip. So I don't know if anybody else kind of feels that way about this, but he said before I knew it, it was time for the trip, and I was excited, but I still only really saw it as a fun opportunity. From the moment we landed, however, I noticed how different it was from here. People felt kinder and more welcoming, and I definitely noticed how cheap everything was. However, everything became clear to me why I was there once I was in Kirangari. From the time of our arrival to the time we left, we were greeted everywhere with genuine love and compassion. I was speechless and awestruck when I saw their greeting as they sang and danced for us in a ceremonial fashion that felt like it was meant for the president, or at least somebody more important than me. When we got out of the car, and Emily was there to see this, Simon had gotten every teacher and every student at his school to meet us in the town to sing and dance us down the hill to his house. So there were like 150 people, 200 people that were all like, they were so excited that we were there. And that's all they cared about, was just that we were there. They did like a presentation for us that day too. And all the teachers and everything came the next day to say hello and all of that. So I kind of get what you feel like you're somebody really important. So he said everyone generally was excited to see us, even those who had never met us before. As the days continued, I observed the sincere love and compassion that the people of Kirangari blessed us with as they showed us around the village and brought us into their life. Seeing the projects my mother had talked about and listening to how they had affected the lives was lovely to see. However, to my surprise, this was the part of the trip that affected me the least. It was not the elaborate welcomes we received either. What struck me the most was the daily gathering and fellowship and the servant hearts of the people that the people of Kirangari demonstrated. We spent many days eating and conversing in host families' homes with meals that we know took hours for them to fix. We talked about everything from what life was like in America or Kirangari to sharing new meal and dessert recipes to spiritual matters and worship. It became clear that this trip was more for encouraging and ministering to me than it was helping the people of Kirangari. People who I had never met welcomed me into their homes with joy and unconditional love and sacrifice, and to me it was an example of the same kind of love that is displayed in Christ. Kirangari showed me what this love was supposed to look like by modeling it daily. Kirangari also showed me the power of prayer. Before going, I may have prayed once or twice a month. However, seeing how the people of Kirangari prayed showed me how close they were to Christ, and it helped me long to have the same relationship. Since I have been back from Kirangari, I have prayed daily and have seen my spiritual health grow exponentially. Kirangari was just a fun, exciting adventure at first. I thought I was going for a service project. However, Kirangari served me more than I could ever serve them. They may be monetarily poorer than us, but they are rich in the fruits of the Spirit, and they encourage all who visit them there. It's not just a place to send money, but it is now the home of my new family, and I could not be more grateful for it. Kirangari has taught me so much about how the body of Christ should interact with and love one another, and how each individual has an important role in making sure that the body is healthy. I express again how grateful I am for the chance to go to Kirangari, and cannot wait until I can meet my family again. The last thing I will say is that if you get the opportunity to go, then go. It will bless you, and you will not regret it. So that's for my son. So thank you guys for letting me talk.
Now, what would that son did?
We did have food. We'll talk about food. We'll show you some pictures of food. Let me have, you want Emily, you want to speak next? Yeah, I can put some.
When asked about the experience of this trip, I have found it hard to provide a succinct expression of words, but will do my best for you today. In the first meeting of potential travelers, Wendy asked us why we felt called to potentially go on the trip to Tanzania. Part of my reason, kind of like Connor, was simply that experiencing as much travel as possible is something that I want to try and get out of life. And this seemed like a way to go on a unique trip that I likely couldn't do on my own. While in Kirangari, we visited the vocational training school, and I was told that a portion of my grandfather's memorial funds had been designated to the school by my grandmother. In addition to them being donors in past projects such as the donkeys. Following that visit, Pastor Clark said that he wanted to include this within his sermon on Sunday and asked if I wanted to stand up and say something as well. I essentially indicated that I was fine with him handling the speaking on that occasion. I had prepared a brief remark, just in case though, which gets at another part of why I felt called to go on the trip. I didn't use it that Sunday in Tanzania, but we'll share it with you now. When we first met to discuss this trip, Wendy asked us why we might want to come. And although I can't remember my precise answer, I know that my grandparents were part of my reason. They are a continued influence within me, but to witness the impact of their faith and love in this way here was wonderful. This past year has been a tougher one, and a huge part of that was the loss of my grandmother. My grandparents went on a number of their own travels, and they too had gone to Africa, though on the other side of the continent to Morocco. However, the way I want to follow their example is based in what Pastor Clark referred to in his sermon that Sunday as their lineage of love. On the trip, I did have unique and exotic travel experiences, like going on safari, but I also got challenged and strengthened on a personal level. Despite my desire to travel as much as possible, I am at heart a homebody and introvert. So nights separated from the group or the immense outpouring of love from strangers took a little processing for me. There were also reminders of things that we know deep down but tend to lose sight of in our busy first world lives. Like our accomplishments and possessions aren't the purpose or measure of our lives. My grandparents certainly had plenty of those, but that wasn't or isn't the legacy that I feel in my heart or that Pastor Clark spoke of. Following the trip, I am more comfortable and confident in myself and my own impact. All of that said, if you are interested in going on a future trip, I encourage you to look into it, and I am happy to answer any questions. Trust me, I pestered Wendy with plenty myself. If you aren't or can't, I encourage you to stay up to date and involved with the activities of the newly formed Companionship Committee, because it really does make a huge impact within and beyond you.
Okay. The world knows I'm technically challenged, and I don't know how to get this photo to there, or I don't have the right equipment. But in this photo is the hostess that is exuberant that morning because people are coming to her home. Because I was too sick to go to the photo op on top of the mountain, I stayed home. And they stayed back with me and arranged a party for the neighborhood. This jubilant look on her face when these people come to her home is the look I have come to love. Because she gave up her Saturday morning, changed what she was doing, and came had people come over. They had to borrow chairs from the neighbors, I'm sure, because the chairs were all over the living room, and usually there were only two. But this is her happy, wonderful face, having a great time, because people have come to her home to share their love with each other. That's what they want, is to know us, to share our lives, whether it's on paper or in person. That's what the Kirangari people want. They are hosts and hostesses that rival any Old Testament story I've ever heard. They love to have people come. When you come to their home, you are a guest, and you are royal, and you get the best of everything. They don't have huge things. You get the best of what they've got. But most of all, you get their love and their encouragement in being a friend of theirs. This was my second trip. I've been very blessed. Before the trip, I had some health issues because of my teeth, and probably should not have gone. Because while I was there, I was sick, had to go to the hospital, came home, was sick longer, and then had to go to the hospital here. Granted, that was not the best part of my trip. But the night I came to Kirangari, I went up my mountain to my second home. All of the family that farm the mountain all kind of live in this little row of houses and buildings and things. All of them were out in the courtyard singing and dancing as I came in. And my host, who is Evangelist Elisante Marambo, had this as my gift. Now, I'm humbled and kind of like, oh my gosh, shocked by this, because a portrait of myself is not something I ever really wanted. But he had a photo, gave it to an artist 3 hours away by car, gave him the photo, paid for this to be done. Pastor Fue picked it up when he picked us up from the airport, and he was so pleased with his gift that it humbled me beyond words, and I still am, because I only was with them 4 days last year, or 5, not much, but they loved me enough for this. This had to cost a lot of money for them to do, which they don't have, but that's their love for us. And that's their love they have for you, too, even though they don't know you. If you just send, there's an app called WhatsApp. And you get a phone number from somebody there and a phone number from you, put your name in there, and send them a little note just saying, hi, how are you today? They would be delighted. Send them we're sending letters. Just write on there. I've seen pictures of Kirangari. I think it's great. I love to see you dance and how you worship. That's all they want, is to know you and to care about you. So that's how the congregation, even though most of us can't go back to Kirangari, I seriously doubt that I'll ever be able to go back. But those of us that can't go physically can at least go in a letter. And they will be beyond delighted to hear from you. And they will love you forever. Thanks.
Yeah, when you write letters, you can simply bring them here to church. We've set up in the back, you can maybe see the bulletin board back there. It says what's happening. Kind of right below that, there's There's some bins with some orange signs on them, and you can leave the letters there. Then Wendy will bundle them up. Yeah. We've sort of learned along the way, if you, Wendy has learned this especially, but if you just send a letter, the chances of it getting lost are really high. But if we bundle them all together and we send a box, a package, there it's much more likely. Yeah. Yeah. Great.
I can also, if you guys like, find the names of specific people for you to write to. So I'll talk to Pastor Joy and find out if there's someone specifically. I know that all of Upendo and Pastor Kikipero's children would love to have the pen house here. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I remember telling y'all when Joseph and I came back from our first visit that, the overall theme of the visit was too much. They love us too much. They honor us too much. And that, just every year, that's the same story. It's the same story. And it's not about me, it's because I bear the name Zion. Just like Julie said, that love is for all of us. They love the necklaces. People were wearing them. Anyway, I just want to shut up here for a little while so that y'all can ask what questions you have. I'll sort of help moderate and maybe pass the mic. But what are you thinking about? What would you like to know more about? What are your questions? You want to know about the food. So there's a difference between rural Kirangare in the mountains and in the city down in the valley, okay? So one of the cities we spent time in was Arusha. That's kind of the leaping off point for safaris and things. You're going to find different food there than in Kirangare.
For instance, there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken right across from the hotel room.
For example, yes. But when we're in Kirangare, what we're eating are the things that they have grown and raised in their own community. Every meal, chicken and beef, often pork. They don't usually have that, but that's what they provide for honored guests. And if you're eating chicken or beef or pork, it's because they've killed the chicken and slaughtered a pig and slaughtered a calf, they're giving their best. They also grow vegetables there, and so potatoes of various kinds, yams that are like white and purple on the inside, like French fries. We call them French fries. They call them chips because they have some British lineage there. Tomatoes and onions and ginger was a big part. Ginger tea. What am I missing? Bananas, yes. Lots of bananas. Melons, yeah. Watermelon. Yep, ground nuts. Sugar cane. Yeah, bananas, yeah. Yeah, they taste different, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yes. What area of the United States does their weather compare to? There's a difference between the valley and the mountains. Gosh, I don't know.
Really, I think the thing is that the temperature variation there is not that great. So even when it's winter there, it's 65 or 70, and then in the summer it's 85 to 90. So they don't get cold like we do, even high up in the mountains there. There's some snow on Kilimanjaro, but not any of the other mountains.
Yeah, that's
And their length of day
right.
is pretty much the same all the time. They don't have to change like we do to darkness or lighter. So.
Yeah, so they're closer to the equator, so all that stuff is more the same. So yeah, they'll have 8 hours of light and 8 hours of darkness, and some stuff in between. But when we tell them, the sun goes down at 4 o'clock in the winter, they're like, yeah. Yeah. Storms. They have a rainy season, yes. So And because they are south of the equator, their seasons are opposite to ours. So we have tended to travel, we've traveled in September, so that's sort of late summer, early fall for us, but for them, it's like spring. They're sort of starting to head into spring, coming out of winter and heading into spring. And so spring is when the rains come. So, November, December is when the rain starts, and it like rains for a couple of months, basically, and like crazy rain. So when we're around, there'll be like these huge drainage ditches, often with concrete, just to take all of the water that they get in the rainy season. And so they're spending, while we're there, they're spending that time preparing the ground, doing some planting so that when the rains come, their fields are ready to receive, maximize all that water that they receive.
And that's actually the water project in Pare that Pastor Bob showed you about. Their idea there is the runoff from the mountain and would collect there, so they don't have to go down the mountain to get water like they do now. They would actually have a storage place for it further up. So that's what they're trying to accomplish with that, so that they can have a more reliable water source there for their gardens and for growing crops, where they don't have to, because right now, like, for me to have a shower, the girls have to go down the hill and get 5-gallon buckets of water, bring it up, heat it over and then that's how I have water. So you can imagine if you got to water your tomatoes or something, that's kind of a hassle to do that. And that's women's work, again. So this would really benefit the women, particularly of the church, with their gardens and growing that stuff there to have a reservoir. So that's what they're trying to take advantage of with that water project.
Yeah, what else? What else? Yes.
What kind of courses do they have in their schools? Subjects,
Yeah. It's similar to ours. One of the differences is that everybody is born and into their families learning a tribal language. In Kirangari, it's Pare. It's the Pare Mountains. It's the Pare Diocese. So they grow up learning Pare. When they go to school, they start learning Swahili and English, which are the two national languages. But in addition to this in school, there's math and there's science and,
Yeah, like for instance, Simon is a biology and chemistry teacher. That's what he teaches. So, so it's going to be, they have different, like they don't have elementary, middle school, and high school. Like there's a different way that they break it up, but yeah. So, and you don't learn any English past grade school there if you don't go on to school. So people that speak English there, it's because they've had more advanced education. And by the time you get to college, like for instance, Pastor Fouet, when he went to seminary, all his classes are in English. So, I can't imagine trying to learn seminary and in a different language, but that's what he had to do. So,
here and then here.
How do you live in your community? If some people speak English, but not everyone, do you translate?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do we translate? How do we talk to each other? So, they're speaking Swahili. We're speaking English. There's a handful of people in the community who do speak English, and those were mostly our hosts, the people we stayed with. So Pastor Fouet speaks English. I stayed with him. Simon speaks English, and Connor and Wendy stayed with him. Malaki speaks English, and Emily stayed with Malaki's family. And Rambo's daughter speaks much. She's pretty fluent in English, daughter-in-law.
She leaves her husband and brings her daughter from a town that's about 3 hours away and spends the entire time there taking care of me and translating. And she's my newest sister. She's a delight.
but that's another thing that I'd really like to see happen here. If you guys are interested, I talked to Todd Byerly, who's at St. Paul's. He was a missionary in Tanzania for many years, and he said he would be willing to come and help us learn some Swahili if you guys want to do that. So, I mean, because I feel like that's just respectful for me to at least learn something to say to them in their own language. So, so that's another opportunity, if you're interested, that we can do, so. Well, we can work it out with Todd, however we want to do it, so.
I mean, but there's definitely moments where I would feel that language barrier pretty acutely. You know, when I'm sitting, you know, in Pastor Fue's mother lives in Kirangare because he's from Kirangare, sitting in the living room with his family and he steps out of the room. And I'm just like, yeah, we do our best, you know, we do our best. And sometimes it's kind of, on the one hand, it's awkward and there's no way around it. You know, I feel like I want to communicate with people, but I can't. And here, you speak 3 languages already and I speak 1, and I'm the dummy here. But it's also like, there's just a presence being together that sort of transcends the language if you can just get through the awkwardness or hold it, you know, long enough to experience it. Yeah. Tom, you had a question.
Some years ago, we had a choir that came through, and one of their comments about singing for Lutherans was, you Lutherans just are like this, and we go back and forth and dance and sing at the same time.
Yes.
The thing I remember most was that one of the members got appendicitis.
Yes.
Because he was here, he
Yes.
was able to get treated, and he said, had he been home, that would have been it. And I'm wondering, have they made any progress in getting hospital care and doctor care up on the mountain and around?
Yeah, good question. So about medical care up on the mountain. So we did not visit the dispensary, as they call it, or the clinic, as we would call it, this year. So I don't know anything new since our first visit. But in that dispensary, there's 8 rooms. You know, one of them is the childbirth room, which is the only room with electricity. And there's no running water, although there is water out back you can get. You know, there's like the medicine room, and then there's an office for the doctors and a couple other visitation rooms. Yeah, but if you have, you know, they can set broken bones and, you know, help you out if you're sick and things like this in the clinic, help you give birth. But if things get complicated, then, you know, and I was treated by the clinic. The doctor made a house call. 2 years ago, I was sick, and he came. And, but if you need anything more, they've got to take you down the mountain. And Same is the closest hospital. Same is, I don't know, and 2 hours, an hour and a half, something like that away. And probably the biggest improvements, even since we were there, you know, Joseph and I just a couple years ago, the roads up and down the mountain are improved. And specifically, the shorter road is much better than it used to be. So you get to the hospital faster. That's the main improvement so far. Yeah. But I'm going to let Julie was at the hospital.
Who was? Yeah. I fortunately, when I needed medical care, I was in Arusha, which is a tourist town, city. I got to go to a hospital. I came in, and the waiting room is outside under a roof, like on a patio, and everybody's sitting there waiting. I went in to a doctor's office. They checked my pulse and my temperature and all that stuff, and then they determined I needed fluids. So they gave me bags of fluids. I don't know what they were. I just trusted them. First of all, the needles were sterile. They came out of a little package, so everything was clean. And that's the one part I was concerned about, was making sure that anything they put in me, you know, was clean. I didn't need more. They were very competent in helping, and, you know, I got enough fluids that day, and it got me home and everything. I didn't see any other things happening. They put me in a room and did the transfusions of the fluids and everything. But like I said, the doctor was knowledgeable. The nurse was knowledgeable, and everything was clean, and I was well cared for. But that was in a tourist town. The bill came on a receipt, on a thing like you get at the grocery store, that they had done this, this, and this, and the total was here, like a grocery store total. I mean, it was crazy for me to see this. You know, when you get the bill from when I get my bill from Mercy, it's going to be pages long with, you know, lots of stuff. Fortunately, they charged in Tanzanian shillings, and and Pastor Fue paid for it, which I know he can't afford to do that because, you know, I know they don't make very much money. So, you know, I got the bill, and I looked at it, and we figured out about approximately how much that would be so I could add, you know.
I think it was 60,000 shillings,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
60,000.
I think it was actually like 280,000 shillings, which is like $60.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
60 bucks,
that's
right.
what I was thinking. There was a 60 somewhere. I think it was $60 for, yeah, for like 9 hours in the hospital getting transfusions of fluids. I was not worried about the care after I saw the doctor. And then I saw that they undid needles out of sterile packages, and then I was like, okay, I'll do this. I wanted to make sure, but they do have better medical care down out of the mountains if you can get there quick enough.
And if you're in Kirigari, ginger tea cures everything. That's what I learned.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
That's the first go-to, is the ginger tea. So.
Any other questions? Ginger tea, yeah, it's fresh. I did get a lesson in how to make ginger tea, yes.
Almost everything that you're getting there is just picked freshly, either the animals or any of the vegetables. They either picked them in the last 2 days that you were there or the day that you were there.
Yeah, the milk store. So I think one of the cool things about the milk store is that its roots, you know, are all the way back into the beginning of our companionship, because it was early on in the companionship that Zion people organized sending cows to Kirangari through the Heifer Project. And so the way that the congregation, that Kirangari Parish handled that is that basically they will give a cow to a family. You know, there's sort of a committee that decides, the families will apply. You know, they're kind of deciding about the need, and also do they still have the capacity, even in their need, to care for a cow. So they give a cow, and then the first cow that is born from that cow is given back to the church so that that program can continue, right? So then they have that cow to share with another family, and so on. And so there's been just like generations and generations of this cow project going on in Kirangari. 20 years, yeah, 20 years. And Simon, who hosted Wendy, the assistant principal at the secondary school, that cow is what paved the way for him to go to school. So he's like, you know, Zion sent me to school. Like, I would not be where I am without Zion. His sense of gratitude, you know, the reason why we get force-fed when we're there is because Simon says, I don't know how to show you love and gratitude in any other way than this, and I have so much of it. So that's the Cow Project. Now, related to the, hold on just a second. So then, you know, so the cows, keeping cows is women's work. And so the women in Kirangari keep cows. And one of the challenges is, you know, they, until the the gift that we made, and they have a freezer now. Until that point, there was no refrigeration, right? So you milk your cow, you have milk, it's time to sell it. Like, now's the time to sell it, and if you don't sell it, well, you might be able to get a buyer for your sour milk, but then when your sour milk goes sour, you're just out of luck. So what you've invested in that cow, you've lost this opportunity of milking. And so what refrigeration does is it provides some stability, where you can sell the milk when the buyer is ready instead of when you, the seller, are ready. So it makes keeping a cow more lucrative, right? I'm going to get a return on my investment, I know, because I have this refrigeration available to me. The second thing that the milk store does is it's a central location, right? Everybody knows where the milk store is now, and they all know Loveness's cell phone number. So I need milk, I go to the store. I need milk, I give Loveness a call. Before, it was like, I need milk, I don't know where the people are who can sell me the milk. So it provides a market, a reliable way for buyers and sellers to connect with one another without all of that guesswork and just, I know someone or so-and-so kind of a thing. So that's what the milk store, the benefit of the milk store is pretty great. They've sort of expanded, they have chicken now, they're keeping chicken in there. They have some other sort of treats so that, people just want something refrigerated or frozen. They'll just buy what do we have? Frozen yogurt, I guess we had. This is one of the other things they sell just to earn a little bit more money. And the project, so when so let me just show you some of when this all happened. So during Lent, this past year, we collected money to provide relief for the families in Kirangare whose crops were damaged by the strong storms that they had, the destructive storms. We collected more money than they needed to provide for relief. So with Pastor Fouet, we said, well, hey, we heard about this project that you want to do the freezer. The women, we have the ZLCW, the Women of Zion. They have their women's department, and the women had told us about this when we were there last year. So we said, hey, how about the freezer? Is there enough there for the freezer? And there was more than enough for the freezer. So when the money arrived, it's probably Easter, May, sometime, it was sort of May and after, sometime after there, when they purchased the freezer and they got the freezer. A few months later, they started renting the shop. And so right now, they're paying for electricity and for the shop. And what they sell a gallon of milk for 10,000 shillings, which is about $4 US. And so then a lot of that goes to, that stays with it. So here's how it works. You sell your milk to the milk store. The milk store will buy your milk from you for something less than 10,000 shillings. I don't remember exactly what it is. But they'll buy it for a little bit less than 10,000. Now the milk store owns it, and the milk store, pushes that product. They sell it for 10,000 shillings, $4, and then the profit is it's not really profit because it's covering the rent and the utilities for the shop. And they mean for it to more or less break even. They're not trying to make money. They just want to have this opportunity for the women to sell milk. So that's the story of the milk store.
Do we have plans for how we're going to move forward with this and invite people from Kirangari to come here?
Yes. We have already extended that invitation. So it's in June of next year. Somewhere in the June 16th to maybe July 2nd is kind of the time frame. So it's a visit that's roughly about as long as the visits that we have made when we go there. And the newly forming Zion Companionship Committee is going to be making some other decisions, things like, what are we going to do when they come? What do we want to show them? How many are we going to bring? Because are we going to bring 2? Or are we going to bring 4? Yeah, we know that it's going to be less than 2,000. You know, they're not going to be paying their way. We are going to be paying their way. So it's going to be, we'll have to raise some money, you know, up to $2,000 per person that we bring here. Then we'll be organizing Zion folks to house them while they're here. The thought was that maybe 2 hosts per person we bring. You know, so the first half of their time, they'd stay with one family, and then the second half of their time, they'd stay with another family. And so that's the rough sketch of the plans right now.
If anyone is interested in being on that committee and helping with those plans, please let me know. We had our first meeting this past Thursday. We have the next meeting on October 25th. It's a Friday night here at Zion. So if you would like to be on that, or if you're interested in just learning about it, just let me know.
Yeah, October 25th, the next meeting of the new companionship committee. So, okay. Now let me just touch base real briefly on a couple of the other projects that we've supported and that we got to visit. You heard about the Vocational Training Center. Originally, that was supposed to have been in a building owned by the Catholic Church in Idaru, another one of the 4 preaching points. That fell through because the Catholic bishop said, hey, I have an idea for how to use that building. And so the folks in Kirangari scrambled. They moved it to Kirangari. That's important mostly because it delayed the start of the program. They only just started a couple of months ago, and they have 5 students right now. These 5 students are learning how to be tailors and seamstresses. They have hired a very talented woman named Margaret. They brought her in from where was it? Outside of the cities, a city a few hours away. They brought her in from there. No, farther. Moshi, yes, Moshi. Yeah, they brought her in from Moshi. Pastor Fue knew her. She herself made my shirt that's up there, so go check that out. And so she teaches them how to sew. She also teaches batik, which is how to make, get the print the pattern on there. So there's a video on the website or YouTube that is, it's close to half an hour, but it shows you all the students. They speak and they tell how grateful they are. We see Margaret make some batik. She answers some questions and things, so check that out. The other project is the water project. We touched briefly on that. One of the preaching points is called Pare, and they have started to build quite a large cistern to collect rainwater off the church building, so that this rainwater is available for gardening and perhaps for keeping fish. We'll see. But that water project is one that we've invested in as well.
And they are still working on the daycare building. We helped put some bricks down there, but they still need a lot of bricks. And so they're still in the church office with the daycare now until they can get enough funding together for the rest of the bricks that are needed for the daycare.
Yeah, the Zion Daycare expansion. This Zion Daycare expansion is not just a bigger room, but it is also going to allow them to do full day. It's preschool. They call it a daycare, but it's preschool. So it's kids who would otherwise just be tagging along with mom and dad in the fields, poor families, who are getting a chance specifically to learn English, which is kind of like a key skill for being able to continue on in school and get your education. And so this new building will be bigger, and it will allow them to provide lunch and keep the kids all day long and give them that leg up. Yes, and the donkeys, yes. We got to name a couple of donkeys. One is named Jay, and another one is named Joseph. And there was definitely a vibe like, you name your donkeys in the United States? Yeah. The donkeys are down in Marindi. Zion provided donkeys, 20 years ago, provided donkeys. And when they were up in Kirangari, they were dying because the donkeys just weren't suited to that elevation. So they sent them down to Marindi, and, they're beasts of burden, right? They carry things to and from the market. The folks who received the donkeys, the donkey keepers, they have carried building materials to the church, for the church, as the church building is being built in Marindi. In fact, while we were there, all of us laid a tile. It was a lot of fun. We danced and sang and laid tiles at the same time. And so, then they're able to make more money with the vegetables they sell, because they can take them down the mountain to sell them.
Pastor Floyd did share with me too that this time when they bought the donkeys, they bought mostly male donkeys because they're stronger. And they were going to use them specifically for hauling. He said in the future, if we want to give a couple more, they will buy females so they can start making their own donkeys. So, I mean, that is something that could be a continuing project. Probably not a big one, but down the road we could do more of that too.
Yeah, a donkey, we sent 10 donkeys, and it was $200 a donkey. So those are some of the concrete ways that we are partners in ministry with them. But I hope what you take away from this is that it's not about the money, and it's not about the projects. Like it's really about the relationship. Yep, the fellowship. That's the special thing. Special thing. Now, I talked about a future trip, them coming here, but we were also invited there again next year in October. Now, when I was imagining bringing, hosting their travelers here, I was thinking we would take a break from traveling there. But this is a special year. Their diocese, which is like our synod, so here in Iowa, there's a southeastern Iowa synod, and there's 130 congregations from here to Des Moines and down to Muscatine, etc. That's a synod, we call it. For them, they call it a diocese, and there's some 30 to 40 parishes which have multiple preaching points, just like Kirangare does. And the diocese is 50 years old. It's the 50th anniversary of the creation of the diocese next year, 2025. And so they invited us to that. It also happens to be the 25th anniversary of our companionship with Kirangare Parish. So it's sort of like, this is an invitation that we couldn't refuse. That Jubilee celebration will be on Reformation Sunday in 2025. So the trip we go next year will be later in the year. It will be overlapping with that special date, the end of October. So consider prayerfully whether you are being called to travel to Kirangare. Prayerfully consider whether you're being called to host somebody. Well, they are here. We also need that. Yeah, Jen, one last question.
Emmy and Jay have some special things that they received from letter writing that they need to show. Oh, maybe there were more.
There were more. There were more. You have yours with you.
I don't have mine with me. This is what the people made and sent you.
And there's one on the table by the bulletins in the back.
They're all the same, actually. No, a little bit different. A little bit.
Yeah, so these gifts are born out of the pen pal relationships that were started after we sent Christmas cards last year. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
He also received some lovely letters.
And again, you don't have to know Swahili to write the letters. Write it in English. I'll take them, type them up, translate it, and send them. Okay? So I can write it in English. Yeah, and then I can put it on Google Translate.
The Lord be with you. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks for your Son, Jesus Christ, and for his Spirit that binds us together across this world with Christians in every place, every people, across time. We especially thank you for the companionship we have with Kirangare Lutheran Parish, including the 4 preaching points, Kirangare, Pare, Adaru, and Marindi. We thank you for the rebirth of this companionship over these last few years. and also for those who invested in the beginning of this companionship, starting in 2000 and trips in 2004 and 2007, all those who hosted travelers from Kirangare in those early days. We ask that you would prosper this relationship. Yes, support us in these projects that we've begun, but all the more in simply building relationships with one another, learning what it means to live in Tanzania, what it means to live in the United States, what it means for us to have this family that you've given us. For the sake of your whole world, we pray that all the more would be drawn into this great family we have in Jesus, leaving behind everything that we need to leave behind. For the sake of your name, we pray. Amen.